Why, hello, welcome back to Drive Me Wild. This past weekend, I had the incredible opportunity to wear the IWC Portuguese chronograph with the obsidian black dial for 48 hours, thanks to the generous folks at IWC. As someone who can't quite afford this masterpiece yet, having it complement my outfit at the Brit Awards and enjoying it during a leisurely Sunday made me feel like a rock star. So let's kick things off by talking about the watch, specifically the dial, which truly sets this piece apart. They call it the Obsidian dial, and honestly, that's a pretty spot-on name. This isn't your standard black. It has a depth and richness that almost feels alive under the glass. The secret? 15 layers of transparent lacquer. Each layer is meticulously applied, finely ground, and then polished to achieve that mirror-like finish. But it's not just about looks. The subdials are milled directly into the brass base and layers of lacquer, creating a three-dimensional effect that makes the whole face feel dynamic. It's subtle, but once you notice it, it is hard to ignore. So why go through all this trouble for a dial? Well, it's all about contrast. The gold-plated hand and applique pop against the obsidian black background, making it super legible at a glance. Plus, the way light plays off the high gloss finish gives it a kind of liquid-like depth, even in lower lighting. It catches just enough light to keep things clear without being distracting. And speaking of clarity, the watch also features a convex sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating on both sides, so even in bright sunlight, you won't be squinting to read the time. Now, when I say the dial is complicated to make, I'm not kidding. IWC says it takes around 60 individual steps to finish just one of these, including applying and polishing those lacquer layers and hand mounting each one of those gold appliques. So when you look at the price point, which is about 20,000 euros, it kind of makes sense. But wow, wearing 20,000 euros on my wrist was definitely an experience. Inside, you've got the IWC manufactured 69355 caliber, an automatic movement with a 46-hour power reserve. It has a see-through sapphire caseback, so you can actually see all 205 components and the Côte de Genève finishing in action. It's a reminder that this isn't just a pretty face, it's a serious piece of engineering. As for the features, you've got small hacking seconds, chronograph function with minutes and seconds, an 18-karat gold case, a 41mm diameter and 13mm height, water resistance up to 3 bar, 27 joules, and automatic winding. And although this chronograph is absolutely stunning, one of my holy grail watches, which if I can't afford this one, I definitely cannot afford the other, is the Portuguese Perpetual Calendar 44. If you haven't looked at that watch, I mean, I don't know what other perfection you would need. I know some people don't like complicated watches, but I do. I like it complicated. The fact it displays the date, day, month, year in 4 digits and perpetual moon phase, just mind-blowing. Of course, if the 18-karat gold case is a bit much, then there's also the stainless steel option, which is a bit more attainable. Not that I'm trying to sell you a watch, but it's worth keeping in mind. And if you do happen to be like popping this in your shopping cart, then put one in there for me too, yeah? So, the Brit Awards were an absolute honour to attend, and thanks to YouTube for inviting me. We even got to go on a beautiful boat ride down the Thames. Even though I'm on the outskirts of the music industry, experiencing this iconic show that I've watched since childhood was surreal. It does feel a bit like an exclusive club, obviously, and while I've been pretty vocal about my critiques of the traditional music industry on YouTube, seeing behind the scenes of such a significant event was eye-opening. Whether the awards are losing their relevance is up for debate, but being there in person was undeniably special. The next day, I visited the Royal Observatory in Greenwich, which felt like the perfect place to take the watch for a day out. Established in 1675 by King Charles II, it's been pivotal in astronomy and navigation. Standing on the prime meridian line where east meets west was a highlight. especially with this watch on my wrist. However, a heads up, I know I'm talking about a very expensive watch, but I'd say the entry fee is also a bit pricey. For 3 people, it came to 72 quid, which breaks down to £24 per person. The tour itself takes about 45 minutes, so keep that in mind when planning your visit. I've brought my parents to the Royal Observatory in London, in Greenwich, right on the Meridian line, and look at this view. Isn't that extraordinary? I would say it's quite expensive to come in, but absolutely magical on a good, glorious day like this. But the day was beautiful, probably the nicest March day in 500 years. Okay, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but the view over Greenwich was spectacular. And spending quality time with my parents, sharing my nerdy side and love of watches was priceless. This is probably the most magical place in London. It is absolutely beautiful. And we are in Greenwich, so still very central. Yeah, this view is just spectacular on this March evening. Really beautiful timepieces inside, and yeah. And had to get 2 extra copies of Rebecca's book. Had to support the cause. So, to summarise, the IWC Portuguese chronograph with the obsidian dial is just a work of art. I do get some of the criticisms about IWC, and I know not all their watches would suit my wrist. I do wish there were some more accessible case sizes, especially since trends seem to be shifting towards slightly smaller watches nowadays. But I admire their history, their collaborations, and their ambassadors. A dress watch like this, especially for such an important event, was magical. Paired with a black silk, dark purple outfit, it fit my style perfectly. The gold case was just divine and glistened beautifully. I don't usually wear much jewelry, but a gorgeous watch can make you feel so unique. It's also a great conversation starter. And when you meet someone who knows and understands what this is, you know that that's a friend for life. Before I sign off, I want to mention Rebecca Struthers and her book, Hands of Time, A Watchmaker's History. This isn't sponsored. I'm just mentioning it for the love of it. I saw it on the shelf at the Royal Observatory and couldn't resist buying 2 more copies. It's a fascinating read that dives into the intricate world of watchmaking and the concept of time itself. If you're a horology enthusiast or just curious about the art and science behind watches, then I highly recommend it. I mention it because I actually got to meet Rebecca recently, and she was even in the audience at my Birmingham show last year, which was so cool. I feel like it's just going to be one of those books that I gift the most. So that was 48 hours wearing an IWC. Look at me being all fancy. I'd love to hear which other watches I should wear for 48 hours and take on a little trip. I think that's the beautiful thing about a watch, how it contributes to your story. This weekend, being able to say what I wore at the Brit Awards and then visiting the Royal Observatory just speaks volumes about what a watch is really about. So yeah, let me know what I should do for Weekend on the Wrist in future. Oh, and don't forget to sign up for my newsletter. It's my absolute priority. Please sign up so that I can stay in touch with you. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.